He's gone. We need to leave right now. Those words, whispered so softly but filled with urgency, sliced through the noise of the busy airport like a knife. I turned my head and looked down at my granddaughter, Emily. She was only 7, but the way her small hand squeezed mine with unexpected strength told me she meant every word. "What do you mean, honey?" I asked, watching the plane that had just pulled away from the gate. My son David was on that plane heading to London for work. We just said goodbye to your dad. He'll be back in a week. But Emily wasn't looking at the plane. Her wide brown eyes were staring past me, fixed on something else. Her face, normally so cheerful, was pale and serious. She tugged on my hand, almost pulling me toward the exit. "Grandma Murray, we have to go. Now." Her little voice shook, but her grip didn't. I had lived 68 years, long enough to know when a child spoke with that kind of certainty, you paid attention. And something about her tone, it carried the same firmness her father often used when he was sure about something important. My instincts told me not to brush her off. I let my eyes drift casually over my shoulder, pretending I was just checking the departure board. That's when I noticed them. 2 men, both in dark suits, standing near the security checkpoint. They weren't talking to each other, but their eyes were on us. Nothing about them screamed danger at first glance. They could have been regular businessmen, waiting for their flights. But there was something in the way they stood, in the way they scanned the crowd while keeping track of where we were. It made an old alarm bell ring in the back of my mind. "All right," I said quietly, adjusting the strap of my handbag and forcing a calm smile. "Let's get to the car. It's getting late anyway." I didn't want to scare Emily, but inside, my heart had started to beat faster. We began walking through the crowded terminal. Not too fast, because that would draw attention. Not too slow either. Just steady, purposeful steps. Emily stayed glued to my side, clutching her stuffed bunny, Mr. Whiskers, close to her chest. "Grandma," she whispered as we stepped onto the escalator toward the parking garage. "Are they following us?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't dare look behind us. "Sweetheart," I asked instead, "how did you even notice those men?" She hesitated, her voice barely rising above the noise of rolling suitcases and flight announcements. "Daddy told me. He said if I saw men in black suits watching us after he left, I should tell you we needed to leave right away." Her words sent a chill straight through me. David wasn't paranoid. He wasn't a man who made up wild stories. He was practical, a level-headed financial director at a big investment firm. For him to tell his daughter something like that, he must have had very good reasons. We reached the 3rd level of the garage, where our car was parked. I scanned the rows of vehicles as calmly as I could. A black SUV with dark-tinted windows sat idling 2 rows away. The driver had a phone pressed to his ear. "Emily," I said carefully as we walked toward our sedan. "Did your father tell you anything else? Something I should know?" She nodded solemnly. "He said if the bad men showed up, I should give you Mr. Whiskers. He said there's something special inside him." And, she hesitated, lowering her voice even more. "He said not to use our phones. Because they can listen." I tried to stay calm as I unlocked the car. I helped Emily into the back seat, buckled her seatbelt, then walked around to the driver's side. When I glanced in the rearview mirror, my stomach dropped. The 2 men from the terminal had just stepped out of the elevator. My mind raced. I had spent decades teaching high school history. I had lived through the sudden death of my husband, raising my son alone. None of that prepared me for this exact moment, but it had taught me one thing: when family is in danger, hesitation can cost you everything. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking spot like nothing was wrong. The SUV I had noticed earlier also began moving, slipping into traffic a few cars behind us. At the booth, instead of swiping my card like usual, I handed the cashier cash. Emily's warning echoed in my mind: no phones, no electronic payments. If they could track calls, they could trace credit cards too. As soon as I reached the highway, I made a quick choice. I didn't take the usual route toward our house in the suburbs. Instead, I steered the car toward downtown Chicago. The crowded evening traffic might give us a chance to blend in, Maybe even lose whoever was tailing us. In the back seat, Emily sat quietly, still hugging Mr. Whiskers. Her eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. She looked so much like her father at that age, serious, cautious, too mature for her years. "Grandma," she said softly, "do you want to see what Daddy put inside Mr. Whiskers now?" I shook my head. "Not yet, sweetheart. Hold on to him for now. When we're safe, we'll look." "Are we in danger?" she asked, her voice small but steady. I kept my tone calm, even though my hands gripped the wheel tightly. "I don't know yet. But your father wanted us to be careful, and that's what we're going to do." The black SUV stayed behind us. Not close enough to be obvious, but close enough that I knew it wasn't coincidence. I made a few random turns through the busy streets, and each time they adjusted their course to follow. My heart thudded. What had David gotten into? Why hadn't he told me directly? What secret could be so dangerous that he made his daughter carry it in a stuffed bunny? I pulled into the underground garage of a large downtown hotel, driving all the way down to the lowest level. I parked behind a concrete pillar, hidden from easy view. For a moment I just sat there, gathering myself. "Emily," I said finally. "Give me Mr. Whiskers." She passed him forward, her eyes wide with worry. The bunny's fur, once white, had turned gray over years of love. I felt along the seams until I found it, a small, nearly invisible stitch along the back. Carefully, I opened it. Inside was a tiny USB drive. And a folded note in David's neat handwriting. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. "Mom, if you're reading this, it means we're in danger. I couldn't tell you in person. They're watching me too closely. The USB has proof of crimes I discovered at Global Meridian, my company. It's encrypted, and you'll need the password. Don't go home. Don't use phones or credit cards. Go to the downtown library. In the history section, find the book American Century by Evan's dad's favorite. Page 187 will have the next clue. Trust no one except Mark Wilson at the Chicago Tribune. He's waiting for the evidence. Keep Emily safe. I'll contact you when I can. Love, David. My heart pounded as I folded the note back up and slipped it into my pocket. My son, my practical, steady David, wasn't just away on a business trip. He was running from something dark, something dangerous. And now he had dragged us into it. Emily's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. "What did Daddy say?" I turned to look at her, her little face so serious. "He said we need to be very brave," I told her softly. "And we have a very important mission." As I started the engine again and pulled out of the garage, I saw the black SUV circling the hotel entrance. They were looking for us. We had bought a little time. But I knew it wouldn't last. For 68 years, I had been Mary Carter widow, retired teacher, grandmother. In the last half hour, I had become something else. A protector of secrets. A target. A woman on the run with her granddaughter, and our lives would never be the same again. The Chicago Public Library rose in front of us like a massive stone fortress lit up against the night sky. Normally, I would have admired its beauty, the tall columns, the carvings, the sense of history and learning it carried. But tonight, it wasn't a place of wonder. It was a place we desperately needed, our next stop in David's trail of instructions. I parked 2 blocks away, in a public garage, paying cash again to avoid leaving any trace. In the trunk, I kept a small emergency bag, something I'd always carried during the cold winters in case of breakdowns. Tonight, that bag became part of our disguise. I pulled out a baseball cap and light jacket for myself and a hooded sweatshirt for Emily. As I helped her slip it on, I bent down to her level. "We're going to play a game," I told her quietly. Her eyes lit up, even though I could still see the nervousness behind them. "What kind of game?" "A pretending game," I explained. "We're going to act like we're different people for a little while, like we're in a play. That way nobody will recognize us." "Because of the bad men?" she asked softly. "Yes, sweetheart. Just to be safe." She nodded quickly, her imagination already working. "Okay, I'll be Elsa," she declared, naming her favorite movie character. I smiled. grateful for her ability to turn fear into adventure. And I'll be Anna. Sisters stick together, right? She squeezed my hand tightly. Right. Inside, the library was buzzing quietly with its own kind of life. Students hunched over laptops, older folks reading newspapers, young adults browsing the shelves. We slipped in easily. Just a grandmother and her granddaughter visiting on a weeknight. The history section was on the third floor. My years as a teacher gave me a kind of compass for where things usually were. American history, mid-20th century. That's where I needed to go. American Century by Evans, I whispered, scanning the spines of the books. And there it was, a thick volume with a worn cover showing Times Square on Victory Day. My late husband, John, had loved that book. He kept a copy on his desk for years. David had chosen it for a reason, something only family would understand. My fingers trembled slightly as I pulled it off the shelf. I flipped to page 187. My heart pounding. There, tucked between the pages, was a small envelope. I slipped it into my pocket without opening it, put the book back exactly where I found it, and guided Emily toward the children's section. Can we get some books, Grandma? She asked hopefully, her eyes on the colorful displays. Not today, sweetheart, I said gently. We need to keep moving. I gave her shoulder a little squeeze. But maybe you can pick one for me to tell you about later. From memory. While she browsed picture books, I found a quiet corner and opened the envelope. Inside was a small brass key. Old-fashioned, probably for a safety deposit box. There was also another note in David's familiar handwriting. First National Bank. Box 1547. The code is Dad's birthday plus Emily's. Go tomorrow morning when the bank opens. Inside you'll find what you need for Wilson at the Tribune. Do not stay in hotels under your name. Do not use credit cards. Password for USB. Carrots and Cabs 2016. Be careful, Mom. They have people everywhere. Trust your instincts. I memorized every word, then tore the note into tiny pieces, slipping them into different trash bins across the floor. The key I hid in the zippered pocket of my handbag next to the USB. When I returned to Emily, she was still flipping through books. But then my eyes caught something that made my pulse quicken. Near the elevator stood a man in a dark suit, speaking quietly into his wrist, scanning the floor with deliberate care. They had found us. I crouched down beside Emily, pretending to look at the book in her hands. We need to leave, sweetheart, I whispered. We're still playing our game. We'll walk normally but quickly. We'll use the back stairs. Her eyes widened, but she nodded bravely, clutching Mr. Whisker's clothes as we slipped between the shelves. The emergency stairwell was quiet, our footsteps echoing as we hurried down. At the bottom, we came out into a dim service hallway, then out onto the loading dock where staff were moving boxes. I held my head high and walked us through like we belonged, stepping out onto a side street away from the main entrance. The night air was cool, the city buzzing with neon lights and traffic. Where are we going now, Grandma? Emily asked, trying to keep up with my brisk pace. I hadn't fully decided yet. We couldn't go home. Hotels and family houses were out of the question. David had been clear, our pursuers had resources everywhere. Then I thought of Maria Lopez, one of my former students. Over the years, she had become more like a friend. She managed an apartment building on the west side, a place where new immigrants and travelers often stayed quietly, no paperwork, no questions. I raised my hand and flagged down a taxi. When the driver stopped, I gave him an address 3 blocks from Maria's building, never the exact place. Just close enough. Emily leaned against me, exhaustion finally setting in. I kissed the top of her head. You're being so brave, I whispered. Your dad would be proud. She looked up at me sleepily. Is Daddy in trouble? He's trying to fix something that's wrong, I answered carefully. Sometimes doing the right thing is dangerous. But it's still important. She thought about that for a moment, then nodded. Like in Harry Potter. When they had to fight the bad guy, even though it was scary. Exactly like that, I said softly. Maria opened the door of her apartment with surprise, then concern as she took in our tired faces. Mrs. Carter, she said. though to her, I'd always just been Miss. What are you doing here so late? And with Emily? I need a favor, I said quietly. We need a place to stay tonight. Somewhere no one will think to look. And if possible, I need to borrow a laptop. Maria didn't ask for details. She simply nodded. Come in. Within 20 minutes, she had set us up in a small studio apartment she normally used for visiting relatives. She even brought us some food and toiletries. Whatever you're going through. Whatever I'm through. You know you can trust me, she said gently at the door. Thank you, I whispered, touched by her kindness. We won't stay long. After she left, I made Emily a quick dinner from what Maria had given us. Watching her eat, I felt some of the weight on my shoulders lift. Kids could bounce back faster than adults. They still needed the basics: food, rest, and a sense of safety. Once she was tucked into bed, Mr. Whiskers pressed against her cheek. I sat at the small kitchen table with Maria's laptop. My hands trembled as I inserted the USB drive. A single encrypted file appeared, asking for a password. I typed it in: carrots and cabbages 2016. The file opened. Hundreds of documents filled the screen. Financial records, emails, meeting notes, even photographs. I wasn't a finance expert, but I didn't need to be. The evidence was overwhelming. Global Meridian, David's company, had been laundering money for drug cartels and terrorist groups. They were disguising dirty money as legal investments while making millions in fees. Worse, they had been funneling weapons into war zones under embargo, using fake humanitarian organizations as cover. Names popped up in the files: high-level executives, government officials, regulators who were supposed to be protecting the public. The corruption wasn't just in the company. It had spread into the very systems that were supposed to prevent such crimes. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking. Now I understood why David couldn't tell me face to face. Why he had made his daughter carry a secret inside a stuffed bunny. If these people found us, they wouldn't hesitate. Tomorrow I would go to the bank. Then, to the Tribune. But tonight, we would stay hidden. From the bed, Emily's small voice broke through the silence. Grandma, are we going to be okay? I went to her side and brushed her hair from her forehead. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine. Your dad trusted us to help him, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Her eyes fluttered shut, already half asleep. Daddy said, "You're the bravest person he knows." Her words stopped me cold. To David, I wasn't just a retired teacher, a widow, a grandmother who baked cookies. He believed I was strong enough to face this. And as I sat by the window, watching the dark street below, I realized I had no choice but to prove him right. I wasn't sure if I was brave, but I knew I was determined. And sometimes, determination is the only thing that stands between safety and disaster. The next morning, I woke before the sun. My sleep had been broken all night, every little noise making me sit up and check the window. I wasn't used to living in fear like this. But when I looked over at Emily, still sleeping peacefully with Mr. Whiskers under her chin, I knew I didn't have the luxury of falling apart. I got us ready quickly, dressing us both in the plain clothes Maria had left in a bag by the door. Simple jeans, shirts, and jackets. Clothes that would help us blend in. She'd even included a pair of sneakers for Emily that fit her just right. By 8:30, Maria's cousin Raymond was waiting downstairs in his taxi, just as she'd promised. She had written a note. "He'll take you wherever you need to go." No questions asked. I guided Emily into the back seat, and Raymond gave me a small nod through the rearview mirror. "Where to?" he asked. "The First National Bank," I said softly. Downtown. We drove through the morning traffic, the city already buzzing with workers rushing to their jobs. I kept my head low and reminded Emily of the game we were still playing. "Remember," I told her gently. "If anyone asks, we're just going to get some of Grandma's jewelry out of a box. That's it. Nothing about Daddy, nothing about anything else. Can you remember that?" She nodded solemnly, her little hands folded neatly in her lap. "I won't forget. Daddy says I have a memory like an elephant." When we reached the bank, Raymond parked across the street near a coffee shop. I'll wait here, he said firmly. Take your time. No rush. The limestone building loomed ahead of us, its grand pillars meant to give people a sense of safety and trust. Today, it felt like a mask hiding secrets. How many shady deals had passed through places like this while ordinary people walked in and out with their savings and checks, completely unaware? I squeezed Emily's hand as we climbed the broad stone steps and entered the lobby. It bustled with activity tellers serving customers, business people dropping off deposits, security guards casually scanning the room. I walked up to the information desk where a young woman with a friendly smile greeted us. Good morning. How can I help you? I'd like to access my safety deposit box, I said, keeping my voice calm. Box number 1547. Of course. May I see your ID? I handed over my driver's license, my heart pounding. If our pursuers had already flagged my name, this could all fall apart right here. But after a quick glance, she typed something into her computer and smiled again. Thank you. Mrs. Carter, I see this box has a registered access code. Yes, I said, my voice steady though my palms were sweaty. It's June 15th, followed by September 24th. It was the combination David had given me, his father's birthday, followed by Emily's family knowledge. Something no outsider could guess. The woman nodded and asked us to wait in a seating area. Emily swung her legs quietly while clutching Mr. Whiskers. I scanned every face in the lobby, my nerves on edge, ready for anything. After a few minutes, a man in a gray suit approached us. He was middle-aged, with polite manners. Mrs. Carter? I'm Mr. Daniels. If you'll follow me, I'll take you to your box. We followed him through a secured door, down a quiet corridor, and into the vault area. The heavy steel door stood open, revealing rows and rows of metal boxes. Another employee verified my ID and the access code, then used his key along with mine to unlock box 1547. You can use this private room, Mr. Daniels said, placing the long metal container on a small table in an adjoining space. Take your time. When the door closed behind him, I immediately opened the box. Inside was a sealed envelope, a prepaid flip phone, and a thick stack of cash bound with a rubber band. $10,000, at least. Enough to live on for weeks without touching a credit card. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside were several things. A formal letter from David addressed to Mark Wilson at the Chicago Tribune, giving him permission to release everything. A second USB drive, labeled backup, original documents, and another handwritten note for me. I unfolded it carefully and read. Mom, if you're seeing this, then it means they're after you now. This backup drive has the same evidence, plus originals I couldn't risk leaving on the first one. Take everything to Wilson immediately, he's expecting you today. The prepaid phone has one number programmed, but use it only if you have no other choice. After you deliver everything, leave Chicago with Emily. Use the cash for travel. Avoid planes and trains, they'll ask for ID. Remember the cabin on Cedar Lake in Michigan? The one Dad used for fishing trips? The key is still under the rock by the back door. Go there and wait. Someone will contact you. I'm sorry for putting you in danger, but I had no other choice. Tell Emily I love her more than anything. David swallowed hard, folded the note, and tucked it safely into my pocket. Emily was watching me closely. Did you find the treasure, Grandma? She whispered. I smiled softly. Yes, sweetheart. We found the next clue. And now we have to take it to someone who can help your daddy. I gathered the items into my handbag, pressed the button for Mr. Daniels, and waited while he escorted us back upstairs. My face stayed calm, but inside I was trembling. The Tribune office was only a short drive away. Raymond was waiting just where he promised. As we climbed into the back seat, I leaned forward. Can you take us to the Tribune building? And Raymond, if you notice anyone following us, please don't go straight there. Take some turns. Lose them if you can. He glanced at me in the mirror, his expression serious. Don't worry, Senora. I know the city better than anyone. They won't catch us. And with that, we pulled into traffic, heading for the one man who could take the burden from us if we managed to reach him in time. Raymond drove with skill, weaving through downtown traffic like he'd been doing it all his life. He made quick turns down side streets, doubled back through alleys, even ducked briefly into a hotel garage before slipping out another ramp. Emily thought it was all part of our game. She leaned against me, whispering, "It's like a spy movie, Grandma." I gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "That's right, sweetheart. And spies have to be smart and careful, just like us." After several detours, Raymond finally said, "I think we're clear." His eyes flicked between the mirrors and the road. No one behind us now. I exhaled slowly, though my nerves didn't ease much. The Tribune Tower came into view, its tall stone spires cutting into the Chicago sky. I'd always admired that building, with its Gothic design and history carved into its walls. Today, it didn't look like a monument to journalism. It looked like our only lifeline. "Drop us here," I told Raymond softly. "But please, circle the block." "If you see anything suspicious, don't wait." He nodded firmly. "I'll be close." I guided Emily up the steps and into the Tribune lobby. The security desk stood ahead, a guard watching us approach. I clutched my handbag tightly, the weight of the USB drives pressing against me like a reminder of the danger we carried. "I have an appointment with Mark Wilson," I said calmly. The guard tapped on his computer, frowned slightly, then shook his head. "I don't see anything scheduled under that name." My stomach dropped. Had something gone wrong? Had David's contact backed out? Before I could respond, the guard's phone rang. He picked up, listened for a moment, then looked at me again with a different expression. "Are you Mrs. Carter?" "Yes," I said cautiously. "Mr. Wilson says to send you up right away." 18th floor, suite 1823. Relief and fear mixed in my chest. Someone was expecting me, but that meant they knew exactly who I was. Emily, and I took the elevator up. She looked up at me, eyes curious. "Is this man going to help Daddy?" "I hope so," I answered, smoothing her jacket as if the small gesture might protect her. "But remember, we have to be careful about what we say." When the doors opened, we were met by a young assistant who led us through a maze of desks and glass offices. The newsroom buzzed with the sound of phones, typing, and quiet voices. In the corner office, a man in his early 40s stood waiting. His sleeves were rolled up, his tie loosened, and his eyes sharp behind his glasses. Double quotes, "Mrs. Carter," he said, shaking my hand. "Mark Wilson. Your son told me you'd be coming, but I was starting to worry." "We had to be cautious," I explained. Before introducing Emily, Wilson bent down slightly and greeted her kindly, offering her a juice box from a small fridge. Then he straightened, his face growing serious again. "David reached out to me 3 weeks ago," he said. "He told me he was gathering evidence on Global Meridian money laundering, weapons deals, corruption. He promised to deliver it, but then he went silent 2 days ago. Yesterday, I learned he boarded a plane to London. I thought, well, I feared the worst. He had to leave to protect himself," I said softly. "But he left this for you." I opened my handbag and placed the envelope, the drives and David's letter on his desk. Wilson's eyes widened. "Do you know what's on these?" "Enough to understand why people might kill to keep it hidden," I answered quietly. He plugged in one of the drives, scanning the files quickly. His eyes darted back and forth, his mouth tightening as he scrolled. "This is unbelievable," he whispered, "and extremely dangerous. With this much documentation, we could publish the first story online by tomorrow. Print edition the next day. But once we do, you and your granddaughter cannot stay in Chicago. These people will stop at nothing." "That's already the plan," I assured him. "David told us to head north. He gave us a safe place." Wilson nodded, then leaned forward, his voice low. "Mrs. Carter, I've been doing this work for 15 years. I've uncovered corporate corruption before. But what your son found, it's on a level I've never seen. This will trigger investigations worldwide. Governments, banks, even intelligence agencies will be forced to respond. Will it stop them?" I asked quietly. "The money laundering, the weapons sales?" "It will stop a lot of it," he said honestly. Some people will escape consequences. That's how these systems work. But this will cause real damage to their network. Enough that it won't recover easily. Before I could answer, a knock came at the door. Wilson's assistant stepped in, looking pale. "There are 2 men in the lobby," she whispered. "They say they're federal agents investigating financial crimes. But something feels off. Security is stalling them, but they're pushing hard." Wilson's reaction was immediate. He copied the drives to his computer, then handed the originals back to me. "We need to move you now. There's a service elevator to the loading dock. My assistant will take you. I'll deal with the men." He crouched down to Emily's level, his voice kind but serious. "It was very brave of you to bring this. What you and your grandma are doing, it's very important." Emily clutched Mr. Whiskers tighter. "Daddy says you have to be brave even when you're scared." Wilson gave her a small smile. "Your daddy is a wise man. Now go. I'll be in touch once this is published." We followed the assistant through a back hallway to a freight elevator. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of 2 men in dark suits stepping off the main elevator, their faces cold and purposeful. We had escaped by seconds. The loading dock bustled with delivery trucks, carts, and workers. We slipped out into the flow unnoticed, walking quickly toward the side street. Raymond's taxi waited right where he'd promised, 2 blocks down. "Did you finish your treasure hunt?" Raymond asked as we climbed in. "Not yet," Emily answered seriously. "We still have one more place to go." Raymond nodded, pulling smoothly into traffic. "Then let's get you there." "Where to now?" I hesitated only a moment. "North, toward Wisconsin. I'll tell you the way." Chicago's skyline receded behind us. Emily leaned against me, her small hand wrapped around mine. I stroked her hair gently, feeling a cautious wave of relief that we had delivered David's evidence. The story would come out. The truth would finally see daylight. But I also knew something else. When powerful people are cornered, when they have nothing left to lose, that's when they become the most dangerous. And we weren't out of danger yet. The city lights faded behind us as Raymond steered the taxi north. Emily rested her head against my side, finally letting her exhaustion catch up with her. I kept one arm wrapped around her, but my eyes stayed glued to the windows, searching every passing vehicle. Every police cruiser made my stomach tighten. Every black SUV set my nerves on edge. "Don't worry," Raymond said quietly from the front. "I know the back roads. We'll avoid the highways. Safer that way." I gave him a grateful nod. "You've already done more than enough." He shook his head. "Maria asked me to help. You helped her years ago. This is just family returning the favor." For nearly 2 hours, we drove along winding state roads, far from the busy interstates. The countryside rolled by, fields giving way to stretches of forest. Emily eventually dozed off completely, clutching Mr. Whiskers tight against her chest. "We should stop soon," I told Raymond. "I don't want to keep you from your work." He glanced back at me through the mirror. "I'm not leaving you yet. Maria would never forgive me." His lips curved into a small smile. "Besides, I have an idea." "What kind of idea?" "My brother-in-law owns a small trucking company. He has a delivery going up to Traverse City, Michigan. His driver, Eduardo, is my cousin. He could take you most of the way. No tickets, no ID, no trail. Just another truck on the road." I hesitated. Involving more people in our flight felt wrong, even dangerous. But Raymond read my silence. "Eduardo asks no questions," he assured me. "He's done this kind of favor before. For people who need to travel quietly." I didn't press for details. I knew enough about Maria's community to understand. Sometimes people had reasons for moving quietly, reasons that had nothing to do with crime and everything to do with survival. "If you're sure he won't mind." Raymond was already dialing a number. He spoke quickly in Spanish, too fast for me to catch more than a word here and there. When he hung up, he gave me a firm nod. "It's set. Eduardo will meet us at a truck stop near Rockford in about an hour." The truck stop was bustling when we pulled in. Semi-trucks lined the pumps, drivers stretched their legs, and families shuffled toward the diner. I used some of the cash from the bank to buy sandwiches, bottled water, and a small backpack with toiletries and snacks for Emily. Eduardo's truck stood out even among the giant's bright blue, with the logo of a furniture company stenciled on the side. Eduardo himself was a big man with a barrel chest, salt and pepper beard, and eyes that crinkled kindly when he smiled. "Raymond says you need a ride north," he said after introductions. "I've got deliveries in Traverse City. That's about 45 minutes from Cedar Lake. Close enough?" "Perfect," I said, relieved more than I could express. He waved away my thanks. "The company pays for the gas no matter what. Having company will just make the road less lonely." He bent down to Emily's level. "And maybe I can tell some stories along the way." Emily lit up instantly. "Like trucker stories?" "Exactly like that," he said with a grin. We hugged Raymond goodbye, both of us fighting tears. "Please tell Maria how grateful I am," I whispered. He shook his head firmly. "No thanks needed. You helped our family once. Now it's our turn." Inside Eduardo's truck, Emily's eyes went wide with delight. The cab was huge compared to a car, with a narrow bunk bed tucked behind the seats. "It's like a little house on wheels," she exclaimed, bouncing onto the bunk. Her joy lifted some of the weight off my chest as we rolled back onto the highway. Eduardo settled in comfortably, his big hands steady on the wheel. He told Emily stories about his years on the road, funny tales about odd deliveries, kind strangers at rest stops, and long nights under the stars. He kept the darker stories to himself, but his voice was soothing, the rumble of the truck steady and comforting. After a while, he turned to me. "You should rest, Signora. You've had a long few days." "I'll keep her entertained." I must have been more tired than I realized, because when I stretched out on the bunk, I drifted into sleep almost instantly. When I woke, the light outside had changed. The golden glow of late afternoon filtered through the windows, and the scenery had shifted from farmland to the deep green forests of Michigan. "We're almost there," Eduardo said kindly. Another hour or so. Emily was sitting in the passenger seat, coloring in a little book I'd bought at the truck stop. She looked content, as though our whole ordeal was just an adventure. I checked the prepaid phone David had left in the safety deposit box. No messages. Relief and worry knotted together in my stomach. Silence could mean he was safe, or it could mean he was in more danger than ever. "Could you turn on the news?" I asked Eduardo quietly. He nodded, tuning the radio to a station. Global Meridian Investments continues to deny allegations after rumors surfaced of a major investigative report. Shares dropped 20% today before trading was halted. Analysts say the fallout could be severe. I asked him to change the station, not wanting Emily to hear too much. But the damage was done. The story was already leaking. Wilson and the Tribune must have started contacting people for comment. And if the company knew the storm was coming, then so did the men chasing us. Eduardo pressed the accelerator a little harder. "We'll get you there soon," he promised. He dropped us at a small diner 30 miles north of Traverse City. "This is as far as my route goes," he explained. "But the owner here, Maggie, is a friend. Her son drives a logging truck near Cedar Lake. He can take you the rest of the way." Once again, help came from strangers who asked no questions. Maggie was in her 60s, tough and kind all at once. Within an hour, her son Derek arrived in his pickup truck. He was younger, broad-shouldered, with the same quiet warmth as his mother. "I can get you right to the lake," he said simply. As we transferred our bags, Emily wrapped her arms around Eduardo's leg. "Thank you for the stories," she said seriously. Eduardo crouched down, his big hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You be good for your grandma," he said softly. "She's very brave." His words caught in my chest. Brave. I didn't feel brave. I felt tired, scared, and far from home. But maybe bravery wasn't about how you felt. Maybe it was about what you did anyway. Derek's pickup rumbled north, the forest closing in as the road narrowed. When we finally turned down a dirt path, the trees opened to reveal Cedar Lake. The water shimmered in the fading light, surrounded by tall pines. On the hill above the shore stood a small log cabin, its windows dark and shuttered. This is as close as I can get, Derek said, stopping at the end of the rutted track. The road washes out every spring. This is perfect, I told him. My voice trembled with relief. As his taillights disappeared into the trees, Emily tugged at my sleeve. Is this where Daddy and Grandpa used to come? Yes, sweetheart, I said softly. They fished here every summer when your dad was your age. Did you come too? I shook my head, smiling at the memory. No, this was their special place. I only came once, to help close it up for winter. My heart clenched as I bent to move a red-streaked rock by the porch. Just as David promised, the old spare key was there. Inside, the cabin smelled faintly of pine and dust. 2 bedrooms, a stone fireplace, a small kitchen. It hadn't changed much. Everything was covered in a thin layer of neglect, but it was still solid, still safe. Emily wrinkled her nose. It smells like trees in here. Your grandpa loved that smell, I said, lighting a propane lamp. He said it cleared his mind better than medicine. Together, we made the cabin livable, sheets on the beds, lamps lit, food unpacked. Emily explored every corner with wide eyes, her fear giving way to curiosity. When night came, I tucked her into bed and finally allowed myself a moment of stillness. The prepaid phone sat on the table silent. The USB drives and cash were tucked safely in my bag. The Tribune would publish soon. The world would know. But sitting by the window, watching the moonlight ripple across Cedar Lake, I realized something chilling. The men chasing us wouldn't stop just because the truth was out. If anything, they'd grow more desperate. And now, it was just me, a cabin in the woods, and a child who trusted me completely. For the first time, the weight of it all nearly broke me. But then I looked at Emily's sleeping face, peaceful in the lamplight, and I knew one thing for certain. I had no choice but to be brave. The next morning at Cedar Lake came quiet and cool. Mist curled off the water, drifting like smoke across the surface. It should have been peaceful, almost magical. But I couldn't shake the knot in my stomach. Every creak of the old cabin made me tense. Every bird call sounded sharper than it should. Emily padded into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Grandma, is Daddy coming today? Her question hit me like a stone. I crouched to her level and brushed her hair back. Not today, sweetheart. But he knows we're safe here. And he'll come when he can. She frowned but nodded, pulling Mr. Whiskers close. Do you think he's scared? I swallowed hard, careful with my words. He's worried, yes. But he's also very brave. Just like you. After a quick breakfast of cereal and fruit, we made the cabin feel a little more like home. I swept out the dust, lit a fire in the stone fireplace, and showed Emily how to fetch water from the hand pump outside. She treated every chore like an adventure, her laughter echoing through the trees. But my mind wasn't on chores. I kept glancing at the prepaid phone on the table, waiting for it to ring. Waiting for David's voice or Wilson's, or anyone to tell me what to do next. Around noon, I finally turned on the small radio in the kitchen. Static gave way to a clear news report. Breaking developments in the global Meridian scandal. The Chicago Tribune released thousands of documents early this morning, alleging large-scale money laundering, arms trafficking, and political corruption tied to the company. Federal authorities have announced multiple investigations, and shares of the company have plummeted. Anonymous sources suggest arrests are imminent. I sank into a chair, relief and dread colliding inside me. The truth was out. Wilson had kept his promise. David's evidence was making waves, shaking powerful people to their core. But the radio wasn't done. However, questions remain about the safety of the whistleblower and his family. Unconfirmed reports suggest his mother and young daughter may also be in hiding after suspicious activity at O'Hare Airport earlier this week. Authorities have refused to comment. My blood ran cold. They knew. Not just about David. About us. About me and Emily. I switched off the radio before Emily could catch more. But she was sharper than I gave her credit for. Were they talking about Daddy? She asked softly. Yes, I admitted. And about us too. Which means we need to be extra careful now. Her small chin lifted with determination. Like spies again. Exactly, I said, forcing a smile. Just like spies. That afternoon, I made a careful check of the cabin's surroundings. The dirt road leading in had only one way out. The woods offered cover, but they also offered hiding places for anyone coming after us. I gathered some supplies, blankets, canned food, matches, and stashed them in an old root cellar behind the cabin, just in case we needed to leave quickly. By evening, Emily and I sat by the fire playing a simple card game. Her giggles filled the room, momentarily drowning out my fear. Then the phone buzzed. I nearly dropped it, my hand shaking as I flipped it open. Mom? David's voice. Faint, tired, but alive. David, I whispered, my eyes filling with tears. Where are you? Are you safe? I can't say where I am, he said quickly. Lines might not be secure, even this one. But I saw the Tribune story. They did it. The truth is out. Then why are you whispering like someone's listening? I asked. Because they are, he answered. His voice cracked slightly. Mom, these people aren't done. They've lost billions and some of them are desperate. They're looking for you and Emily. You need to stay hidden. The cabin was a good choice. Don't leave unless you have to. I closed my eyes, pressing the phone tight to my ear. How long do we have to hide? Emily keeps asking for you. I'll get there as soon as I can, he said, pain in his voice. But listen, if anything happens to me, there's a man who can help you. His name is Agent Keller, with the Justice Department. He's one of the few people I trust. If he finds you, listen to him. Anyone else, don't believe them. Not even if they say they're police. Do you hear me, Mom? He asked firmly. Yes, I said, my throat tight. I hear you. I love you, he whispered. Tell Emily. I love her more than the whole world. The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at the phone for a long time, my hands trembling. Emily's curious eyes searched mine. Was that Daddy? Yes, I said softly. He loves you very much. Did he say when he's coming? I hesitated, then pulled her into my lap. Not yet, sweetheart. But he's trying. And until then, we'll keep each other safe. She leaned against me, quiet but comforted. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying David's words in my head. If anything happens to me, trust Keller. The way he said it scared me more than anything else. The next day passed slowly. Emily played by the lake, her laughter echoing off the water. I tried to act calm, but my nerves were on fire. Around mid-afternoon, I spotted something through the trees. A glint of metal. A shape too still to be natural. Someone was watching the cabin. I pulled Emily inside casually, as if nothing was wrong, and locked the door. My heart raced as I peered through the curtains. A man stood at the edge of the trees. Dark clothes. Sunglasses. He didn't move, didn't speak. Just stood there, watching. I forced myself to breathe steadily. Panic would do no good. I guided Emily into the back room, speaking softly. Sweetheart, remember how we talked about games? Right now we're going to play the quiet game. You stay here, no matter what, until I tell you it's safe, okay? Her eyes widened, but she nodded bravely, hugging Mr. Whiskers tight. I grabbed the old hunting rifle John had left in the cabin years ago. My hands shook as I checked it still loaded. I prayed I wouldn't have to use it. But I wasn't about to let anyone walk through that door without a fight. Minutes dragged by like hours. When I peeked again, the man was gone. Relief didn't come. Because men like that don't just disappear. They circle. They waked out. The cabin no longer felt safe. That night, as Emily slept, I sat awake with the rifle across my lap, staring into the darkness beyond the window. I knew now that our time here was limited. David had said to stay hidden. But the truth was, hiding wouldn't be enough forever. At some point, we would have to run again. The following morning broke gray and damp, clouds hanging heavy over Cedar Lake. The mist that had looked peaceful before now seemed like a blanket hiding shadows. I didn't tell Emily about the man I had seen near the trees. There was no need to frighten her unless danger walked right up to our door. Still, I couldn't ignore it. We weren't alone anymore. I decided to keep Emily inside for most of the day. We baked simple biscuits in the little cabin oven, played a board game I found in the closet, and read through one of the old fishing magazines left by John years ago. She didn't complain, though every so often she looked longingly at the lake through the window. Around noon, while Emily napped, I walked the cabin carefully, checking every lock and board. I placed noisy things, pots, buckets, a few glass bottles, along the porch and near the back door. If someone tried sneaking in, I'd hear it dot by mid-afternoon. The prepaid phone buzzed again. My heart leapt as I snatched it up, expecting David's voice. But it wasn't David. "This is Agent Keller," the man said. His voice was low and steady, clipped like someone used to giving orders. "Your son told me you might reach out. I've been trying to locate you." I hesitated. "How do I know you're really who you say?" "You don't," he admitted. "That's smart of you. But listen carefully. Global Meridian has people everywhere. They've bribed cops, lawyers, even some federal agents. If anyone shows up at your cabin claiming to be law enforcement, do not trust them. I'll give you something only David and I would know. When he was in college, he got arrested during a protest march. The charge was disorderly conduct. He told me he was embarrassed to admit it to you. That's how I know him. That's how you'll know I'm telling the truth." My breath caught. David had told me that story years later, after he graduated. Hardly anyone knew. "All right," I said carefully. "What do you want me to do?" "Stay put until I say otherwise. I'm working with a small team outside the Justice Department. We're building a case based on the evidence the Tribune released. We want to keep you safe until we can guarantee protection." "You're in Michigan, correct?" I didn't answer. Silence stretched. "That's good," Keller said, like he already knew. "Stay away from major roads. Stay away from phones besides the one you're holding. I'll contact you again within 24 hours. If anyone else calls, don't pick up." The line clicked dead. I set the phone down slowly, my heart pounding. "Trust Keller," David had said. But trusting meant handing over control of our safety to a stranger. A stranger whose voice carried authority. Yes, but also secrets. When Emily woke, I plastered on a smile and fixed us dinner. She chattered happily about how she wanted to fish like Daddy someday. I listened, but my eyes kept flicking to the windows, to the shadows gathering outside as the sun dipped low. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Every crack of a branch, every owl call made my pulse race. Sometime after midnight, I heard something worse, the crunch of footsteps on gravel. I froze, my hand tightening on the rifle. Someone was outside. Emily stirred in her bed, but I pressed a finger to my lips, silently begging her to stay quiet. Through the curtain, I saw them. 2 figures moving along the edge of the porch. Flashlights clicked on, beams sweeping across the windows. "Federal agents," a voice called. "Mrs. Carter, we need to speak with you. It's about your son." My stomach turned to stone. I remembered Keller's warning. They'll claim to be law enforcement. Don't trust them. I didn't move. Didn't answer. One of the men banged on the door. "Mrs. Carter, this is urgent. Open up." I aimed the rifle at the door, my hand steady now despite the fear. When I didn't respond, the second man muttered something I couldn't hear. Then the doorknob rattled violently. They were trying to force it. Emily whimpered softly from behind me. I motioned for her to crawl under the bed, mouthing the words "stay there." The pounding grew louder. The old wood creaked under the strain. Any moment, they'd break it down. And then tires on gravel. Headlights cut across the cabin wall. The men froze. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then one hissed, "Go." I peeked through the curtain just in time to see them disappearing into the trees as another vehicle pulled up. A single SUV stopped near the porch. My finger tightened on the trigger. The driver stepped out slowly, hands raised. His voice carried through the night. Double quotes, "Mrs. Carter? It's Keller. Your son sent me. I didn't lower the rifle." "Prove it." I shouted through the door. He spoke calmly. "When David was 12, he broke his arm falling off his bike. You blamed yourself for not making him wear his helmet, but he told me you stayed up all night by his hospital bed. He said that's when he realized how strong you really were. My chest tightened. That was something only David and maybe one other trusted friend could know. I lowered the rifle, though my hands still shook, and unlocked the door. The man who stepped in was tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp eyes softened by exhaustion. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Agent Keller, he said simply, showing me his badge. We don't have long. Those men will be back, and they won't stop next time. Emily peeked from under the bed, her eyes wide. Keller crouched down, his voice gentle. Hi there. You must be Emily. Your dad talks about you all the time. He says you're braver than most adults. Her fear melted into curiosity. Are you a good guy? He gave her a small smile. I try to be. I still didn't lower my guard completely. What do you want from us? To keep you alive, he said firmly. And to make sure your son's work finishes what he started. I studied him for a long moment. The weariness in his eyes wasn't fake. Neither was the urgency. Finally, I nodded. Then tell us what to do. Agent Keller didn't waste time. The moment he stepped inside, he closed the door softly but firmly, checking every lock with the eye of a man who'd done this 1,000 times before. Then he motioned me to sit while he paced the small cabin, scanning each window, each corner, as though danger could seep in through the cracks. We don't have long, he said. His voice was calm, but underneath I caught the edge of urgency. Those men were trackers, scouts. They'll be back with more, and next time, they won't just knock. I clutched Emily close, my heart thudding. Then what do we do? We move, Keller said. Tonight? Tonight? I whispered, glancing toward Emily. She was yawning, clutching Mr. Whiskers in her small arms. She's just a child. She'd be safer on the road than here, Keller interrupted. Trust me, Mrs. Carter. These people have resources. They can cut power, block phones, surround you before you know what's happening. The longer we stay, the more dangerous it gets. I hesitated, torn between instinct to protect Emily and the fear of trusting a man I barely knew. But then I remembered David's words. Trust Keller. Where will we go? I asked. Keller crouched by the table, pulling a folded map from his coat. There's a safe house about 3 hours north, near Marquette. Remote. Hard to track. My team keeps it stocked. We'll regroup there. And David? My voice cracked despite myself. Will he be there? Keller's jaw tightened. I can't promise that. But I can promise I'll keep working to bring him back to you. Right now, keeping you and Emily alive is his biggest concern. And mine too. Emily tugged on my sleeve. Grandma, can Mr. Whiskers come too? Keller gave her the faintest smile. Of course he can. He's part of the team now. That small kindness softened something in me. Within minutes, we were packing. I grabbed the bag with cash, the drives, and the prepaid phone. Keller checked the rifle, then left it behind. Too loud, he explained. If we need weapons, I've got quieter ones. He led us out the back, where his SUV sat hidden under branches he'd dragged over it. The engine purred to life as we climbed in. Emily sat between us in the back seat, her head resting against my side. The forest road was rough, bouncing us with every rut. Keller drove with practiced ease, eyes always scanning the mirrors. After an hour of silence, he finally spoke. You should know something, Mrs. Carter. The Tribune story, it's only the beginning. What your son uncovered has already shaken Wall Street, but the deeper files, the ones you still have, they could topple governments. That's why these men won't stop. To them, silencing you means survival. My throat tightened. So we're not just hiding. We're targets. Yes, he admitted. But we're also the key to finishing this. Emily stirred sleepily. Grandma, is this another spy mission? I kissed her hair gently. Yes, sweetheart. And you're my best partner. She smiled drowsily and drifted off, her trust in me absolute. Around midnight, the SUV jolted hard. A flash of headlights filled the mirrors. Another vehicle, coming fast. Hold on, Keller muttered, his grip tightening on the wheel. The pursuing car pulled closer, its beams blinding. Then came the sharp crack of gunfire. A bullet shattered the rear window. Glass sprang across the seat. Emily screamed, burying her face against me. I threw my body over hers, shielding her as Keller swerved hard. The tires screeching. Another shot rang out, hitting the side mirror. Keller's jaw clenched. They found us sooner than I thought. He slammed the SUV into a dirt turnoff, branches whipping across the windshield. The pursuing car followed, its engine roaring. Mrs. Carter down, Keller shouted. He yanked a handgun from under his seat, rolling down his window. With one hand steady on the wheel, he fired 2 shots back. The other car swerved, slowed, then vanished behind a wall of trees. Silence crashed into the SUV except for our ragged breaths. Emily trembled against me, her little hands clutching Mr. Whiskers like he was life itself. Keller's face stayed stone hard, but sweat glistened on his temples. That was no random patrol, he muttered. They knew exactly where we'd be. I swallowed hard. Are you saying someone told them? I'm saying we have a leak, he said grimly. And until I know who it is, we trust no one. We drove the rest of the night in tense silence, avoiding main roads, headlights always off when we could. By dawn, the sky turned pale pink over the trees, and Keller finally pulled into a gravel drive leading to a cabin deeper in the woods than ours had been. This is it, he said. Keller finally pulled into over the trees, and Keller finally pulled into a gravel drive leading to a cabin deeper in the woods than ours had been. This is it, he said. The sky turned pale pink over the trees, and Keller finally pulled into a gravel drive leading to a cabin deeper in the woods than ours had been. This is it. Ikidian. Cutting the engine. Safe house. For now, inside the place was sparse but stocked. Canned food lined the shelves, clean bedding waited on bunks, and a generator hummed faintly out back. Keller checked every room before letting us settle. Emily curled up on one of the bunks, exhaustion finally winning over fear. I tucked her in, smoothing her hair, and stayed until her breathing slowed. When I stepped back into the main room, Keller was at the table, spreading out papers and maps. His face was set, his eyes sharper than ever. What aren't you telling me? I asked quietly. He looked up, meeting my gaze. For the first time, I saw more than professionalism. I saw the weight of someone carrying too many secrets. Your son didn't just stumble onto financial crimes, he said. He uncovered ties between Global Meridian and people inside our own government, senators, officials, even law enforcement. That's why this is so dangerous. Because the people chasing you may not be criminals in the traditional sense. Some of them wear suits and sit in offices in Washington. The floor seemed to tilt under me. So who can we trust? Very few, Keller said. And for now, no one but each other. I sank into the chair across from him, my hands trembling. I was a teacher for 30 years. I raised my son, buried my husband, thought I'd live out my days quietly. Now I'm running from killers and holding evidence that could topple governments. How did I end up here? Keller studied me for a moment. Because your son believed in doing the right thing. And because you raised him to be the kind of man who would risk everything for the truth. I blinked back tears, his words cutting deeper than he probably realized. Mrs. Carter, he said gently. I know you're scared. But I've seen people break under less pressure than you faced this week. And you're still here. Still protecting your granddaughter. That's not weakness. That's strength. I didn't feel strong. But as I looked at Emily sleeping peacefully, I knew one thing, whatever it took, I'd keep her safe. Keller leaned back, exhaling slowly. Rest while you can. Tonight, we'll move again. And next time, it won't just be running. It'll be fighting back. The cabin safe house was quiet, too quiet. Even with the hum of the generator out back and the steady rhythm of the forest around us, I couldn't shake the sense that eyes were on us. Maybe it was my nerves, maybe it was real, At this point, I couldn't tell the difference. Keller was on edge too. He spent most of the day making calls on a secure satellite phone. His voice low, clipped, never giving away more than a word or two. Emily and I stayed inside, playing games on the bunk bed and eating the canned soup Keller had heated over a small stove. "Grandma," Emily whispered once, while coloring quietly. "Do you think Daddy's safe right now?" I wanted to tell her yes. I wanted to wrap her in certainty. But I remembered David's tired voice on the phone, the way he said if something happens to me. The truth was too heavy for her little shoulders. So I said what she needed. "Yes, sweetheart. He's safe because he's smart. And he's fighting so that we can be safe too." She nodded, comforted, and went back to her coloring. By late afternoon, Keller finally sat down with me at the table. His face was drawn, his eyes red with fatigue. "The Tribune's story lit a firestorm," he said. "Global Meridian is collapsing. Some executives are already under arrest. But the higher-ups, the ones with the real power, they're panicking. And that makes them dangerous. They've put out word that they'll pay anything for your capture." My stomach twisted. "Capture? Not alive for now," Keller said grimly. "Because you still hold the backup files. But if they can't take you, they'll silence you. Permanently." I closed my eyes, steadying myself. "So what's the plan?" "We leave tonight. I have one more move. There's a Justice Department hearing in D.C. in 3 days. If we get you there, under federal protection, you can testify. Once your story is on the record, they can't bury it." "They can't bury you. And David?" Keller hesitated. "He's still overseas. Still moving. But once you're safe, I can focus on pulling him out." I nodded slowly. "All right. We go tonight." We left under the cover of darkness. Keller drove with the headlights off for as long as he could, the SUV bouncing over dirt and gravel until we hit pavement. Emily sat between us in the back, too tired to be afraid anymore. She leaned against me, half asleep, her small hand clutching mine. Hours passed in silence. The forest thinned, fields opened up, then closed again into stretches of highway lined with shadows. Every so often, Keller would check the mirrors, his jaw tight. Then, sometime near dawn, headlights flared in the distance. "Too bright. Too steady. They found us," Keller muttered, his knuckles white on the wheel. The car behind us drew closer. Then another appeared alongside it. Emily stirred, blinking awake. "Grandma?" "Stay down, sweetheart," I whispered, pulling her into my lap and covering her with my coat. Keller pressed harder on the gas, the SUV roaring forward. "Hold on." The pursuing cars closed in, one swerving to block the lane ahead. Keller jerked the wheel, sending us onto a side road. Gravel sprayed, the tires screamed, but he didn't slow down. Gunshots cracked through the dawn air. The back window shattered again, glass spraying across the seats. Emily whimpered, clinging to me. "Keller!" I shouted. "I see it." He barked, spotting a narrow bridge ahead, wooden and old. He floored the gas, the SUV thundering across. Behind us, one of the pursuing cars tried to follow. The bridge groaned, splintered and collapsed under the weight. The car plunged into the river below, vanishing in a spray of water. The second car skidded to a stop, unable to follow. Keller didn't slow until we were miles away, the sun rising over the tree line. Only then did he pull off onto a back road, his hands trembling slightly as he killed the engine. "We bought time," he said, breathing hard. "But not much." Emily peeked out from my coat, her eyes wide but dry. "Did we win, Grandma?" I kissed her forehead, my own heart pounding. "For now, sweetheart. For now." We reached DC 2 nights later, after endless hours of driving, sleeping in shifts at small rest stops, never staying more than an hour. Keller's contacts met us at the edge of the city, guiding us into a secured federal building through an underground garage. For the first time in days, I exhaled. Thick walls, armed guards, reinforced doors finally. Somewhere we couldn't be reached so easily. The next morning, I sat before a panel of officials, the backup drives and David's letter laid out before me. My voice shook at first, but as I told the story, David's discovery, the danger, the chase, I felt something harden inside me. I wasn't just a grandmother anymore. I was the witness, the voice carrying the truth forward. Emily sat in the back of the room with Keller, Mr. Whiskers on her lap, watching me with wide, proud eyes. When I finished, silence filled the chamber. Then one of the officials leaned forward, his face pale. "Mrs. Carter, this testimony. This will change everything." I nodded, my voice steady now. "That's why my son risked everything. And why I will too." The days that followed blurred into interviews, protection details, and long hours of waiting. The story spread across the world. Governments denied, then scrambled, then began firing officials. Global Meridian crumbled. Arrests multiplied. But through it all, one question stayed at the front of my mind. Where was David? One evening, Keller entered the safe room where Emily and I sat. His face, usually so stern, carried something different this time. "Relief. We got him," Keller said quietly. "Your son's on his way back. He'll be here tomorrow." My knees nearly gave out. Emily squealed with joy, hugging Mr. Whiskers so tight I thought his seams would burst. The next day, when David finally walked into that room, tired, thinner, but alive, I thought my heart would stop. Emily flew into his arms, burying her face in his chest. "Daddy!" she cried, her voice muffled against him. He kissed her hair, tears streaking his cheeks. "I missed you, Pumpkin." "I missed you so much." When his eyes met mine, the weight of everything we'd been through broke open. We embraced, a silent understanding passing between us. "You did it, Mom," he whispered. "You kept her safe. You saved us." "No," I said softly, pulling back to look at him. "You did. You told the truth. You risked it all. I just followed your lead." But deep down, I knew the truth. We had done it together, me, Emily, and even the strangers who had stepped in to help out later that night. When Emily finally fell asleep curled between us, David and I sat quietly, the weight of exhaustion settling in. "What now?" I asked him softly. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Now we start over. Maybe somewhere quieter. Maybe somewhere where Emily can just be a kid again." I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. "That's all I want." As I looked at my son and granddaughter, safe at last, I realized something. The world outside would keep spinning. Scandals would rise and fall, and battles would continue. But for us, for our family, this was the beginning of something new. A chance to rebuild, to breathe, to live without looking over our shoulders. And maybe, just maybe, to find peace again.